The asphalt ahead is empty. No headlights in your mirror. No exit ramps for miles. But something is waiting just beyond the reach of your high beams. Tonight, we're plunging into 4 blood-spattered tales from the loneliest highways on Earth. 2 haunted by forces you can't outrun, and 2 proving the real monsters carry driver's licenses. Buckle up, kill the radio, and keep your eyes on the white line, because on this road, the next mile might be your last. I'd already been driving 14 straight hours when the hallucinations began, or so I thought. The desert night, star-spackled and moonless, wrapped the 2-lane highway in unbroken dark. Nothing lived out here except tumbleweed and heat ghosts rippling over the asphalt. Coffee sludge pooled at the bottom of my thermos. Sleep whispered from the passenger seat, promising a warm numbness if I'd only close my eyes for a moment. At mile marker 237, a rusted green sign tilting like a drunk, I spotted a figure limping along the shoulder, white dress, barefoot, hair plastered to her cheeks as if she'd climbed out of a river instead of the Mojave. My headlights fanned over her, and she lifted a hand, fingers twitching in a plea I couldn't ignore. I pulled over, told myself I'd call 911, and stepped out into air so dry it felt like knives in my lungs. Up close, she smelled of wet dirt and copper. "Car crash," she rasped, pointing down the embankment. "Husband, please." My high beams washed the arroyo. A silver sedan lay canted on its roof, wheels still spinning. No smoke, no scent of gasoline, almost like an exhibit instead of a wreck. A shape dangled from the driver's window. I scrambled down the slope, boots grinding shale, and reached inside. Blood soaked the man's shirt. His skull was open like a cracked egg. Brain tissue pulsed in the glare of my flashlight. I gagged, staggered back, and felt the woman's hand on my shoulder. "You can take my place," she whispered. Her nails pierced skin. Cold flooded my spine. I spun, but the arroyo was empty. No barefoot bride. No footprints in the dust. A sudden roar of an engine exploded overhead. My own truck barreled past on the highway, headlights blazing, yet I was 50 yards away, heart pounding behind my ribs. The cab was full. The woman sat in the passenger seat, smiling, and in the rear window I saw a shape wearing my face, hands glued to the steering wheel. The truck swerved, tires shrieking, and veered across the broken centerline toward oncoming headlights. Impact sounded like a thunderclap. Metal twisted, glass erupted in a cyclone of shards. The vehicles spun together, a blooming fireball that hurled orange petals into the night sky. I screamed, but no sound came out. Smoke and fire reflected in my eyes. When it cleared, the highway was empty again, silence thick enough to choke on. I climbed the embankment. No wreckage, no scorch marks, just the mile marker sign shuddering in the breeze and my parked truck, cabin light glowing. I opened the door cautiously. The seat was cold, keys still in the ignition, yet on the passenger side, the cushion was soaked dark and sticky. I touched it. My fingertips came away red, slick with blood that wasn't mine. From somewhere beyond the dunes came a woman's laugh, high and triumphant. That was the moment I realized she hadn't wanted rescue. She'd wanted escape, a new driver for the endless road, fresh blood to pay the toll, and I had delivered. The next mile marker read 236. Somehow, without shifting gears, I was already moving forward, alone, yet not. The rearview mirror showed an empty back seat until the lights flickered, and in the strobing dark I saw the bride climbing over the headrest, her mouth unhinged wider than human bone allows. I floored the accelerator, engine howling, but every mile I covered only made the odometer spin backward. The fuel gauge filled itself. The desert repeated in a looping nightmare, and at the far edge of my high beams, the hitchhiker kept pace, sometimes ahead of me, sometimes hanging upside down from the stars, always grinning. I'm still driving. The tank never empties, and the night never ends. If you see mile marker 237, don't stop. Don't even slow down. She's waiting for you to trade places. I was hauling broadcast equipment through the Badlands, a freelance tech chasing the next underpaid gig. Midnight radio kept me awake. AM static, conspiracy nuts, preachers promising salvation through $19.95 seed donations. Around 2 a.m., the signal dissolved into white noise, then locked onto a frequency that hadn't existed a second earlier, 666 kilohertz. A voice, my own voice, crackled through the cab. Accident on Route 18, single fatality, lone occupant still breathing but not for long. The timestamp was 5 minutes in the future. I lurched forward in my seat, nearly missing a curve. My recorded double began describing me in detail. Height, scars, the coffee stain on my shirt that even I had forgotten. Driver loses control after tire blowout, semi-overturns, crushing the cab. Panic made the wheel slick in my grip. I killed the radio. It didn't matter. The dashboard speakers kept talking, describing each second as it happened. Left front tire ruptures in 3, 2, a thunderous pop. The rig jerked sideways. I fought the swerve as sparks bloomed where rims met asphalt. According to the broadcast, I was already dead, my skull splitting against the window. I aimed for the gravel shoulder, slammed brakes, too hard. The trailer jackknifed. Metal groaned in protest. Headlights swung wildly across barren hills. The voice counted down to impact like a sadistic metronome. When the cab finally settled on its side, windscreen spiderwebbed but intact, I hung from my seatbelt, lungs burning with dust. The voice on 666 kilohertz exhaled a satisfied sigh. Fatality averted. Correction delayed. Commencing second scenario. Static burrowed into my ears. Images flooded my mind, glimpses of alternate deaths. A passing pickup's tow hitch decapitating me as I crawled out. A prairie rattler sinking fangs into my jugular. A gas tank leak sparking off the muffler. I kicked the windshield, glass raining outward. Stumbled onto the road, bleeding from a dozen cuts, ears ringing. Silence fell. The frequency was dead air again. A pair of headlights appeared on the horizon. Relief lasted until the glow blinded me, and I realized the vehicle wasn't slowing. I waved frantically, palms slick with blood. The oncoming car accelerated. Inside my skull, the broadcast resumed, whispering, "Impact, inevitable. No survivors." I dove off the shoulder as the car tore past, missing me by inches. The driver never looked back. In taillight flicker, I saw the outline of a radio antenna bent into the shape of a noose. Crawling to my knees, I recognized the feeling of being watched. The radio tower atop the nearest ridge blinked a red warning light. Only now each flash seemed timed to my heartbeat. I understood then. Some hungry intelligence rode the airwaves, collecting deaths like songs, remixing fate until it found a version that pleased its morbid ear. I staggered down the embankment, away from the wreck, but the desert spilled into the same patch of road, no matter which direction I walked. My watch spun backward. The tower loomed closer every time I looked away. My only chance was silence. I crushed my phone, ripped the CB wires from the dash, stuffed dirt into my ears until pain hammered behind the drums. Yet, in the bone-deep hush that followed, I still heard the countdown beginning again. If you ever scan past static out here and land on 666 kilohertz, tear out the speakers before the voice finds you. Some stories become true the moment they're spoken. The Badlands are littered with overturned rigs like broken microphones. grave markers for drivers who mistook prophecy for background noise. They say highway hypnosis can make you miss whole exits, but nobody tells you about the rage that waits on the shoulder. I was 4 hours into a cattle drive, 30 herd packed in a rattling stock trailer, when the Dodge Charger appeared in my rear view, high beams gouging my eyes. The driver tailed me so close his bumper practically kissed my tailgate. I tapped brakes, a gentle hint. He responded with a horn blast and flipped me off, knuckles glowing in my mirror. Wind carried dust devils across the moonlit plains. The road was too narrow for me to pull over safely. I held steady at the limit, praying an exit would present itself. Red-blue strobes erupted behind us. Relief flooded through me, until I noticed the Charger didn't slow. Instead, it swerved across the center line and accelerated. The cruiser matched speed, then both vehicles boxed me in. Charger ahead, police behind. A voice boomed from the cruiser's loudspeaker. "Truck driver, pull onto the shoulder now." I complied, tires crunching gravel. My heartbeat drummed in my throat. The Charger's hazard lights winked on. 2 men stepped out, one in tactical black, the other wearing a state trooper's hat that looked a size too large. The badge glinted like a cheap novelty. Something felt off. The trooper's cruiser had no dash number, no spotlight. He carried an AR-15 at low ready, but the barrel's flash hider was missing, improvised. He rapped on my window. I cracked it 2 inches. "License and livestock papers?" he barked. "May I see your credentials, officer?" I asked, voice quavering. He smiled without warmth. "Step out and we'll talk about credentials." The second man circled the trailer, pounding fists along the panels. Cattle shifted nervously. I unbuckled, slid down with hands visible. The trooper shoved me against the cab, frisking with unnecessary force. When he reached my wallet, he pocketed the cash and tossed the leather into the dirt. "You're transporting stolen beef," he said. "Felony rustling. That's 10 years minimum." I blinked. "They're mine. Brand papers in the glove box." He backhanded me hard enough for my ears to ring. "Shut up while I think." The Charger driver emerged from the shadows, holding bolt cutters. He sliced the trailer latch. Gates swung wide. Panicked steers thundered into darkness. Each animal represented a mortgage payment. I lunged to stop him and took a rifle butt to the ribs. They debated whether to leave me hog-tied or just shoot me. I heard every word. When the trooper leveled his rifle, adrenaline took over. I lunged again, grappling for the barrel. The gun fired, muzzle flash scorching my vision. The round blew a fist-sized hole through the Charger's windshield. In the chaos, I wrenched the weapon free, butt stroked his nose, felt cartilage break. The second man drew a knife, but I fired a warning shot into the sky. He froze. Sirens approached, real sirens this time. Maybe a neighbor had heard the cattle stampede, or fate decided I deserved one mercy. The fake trooper clutched his shattered face and ran. His partner bolted after him. They disappeared over the berm, leaving the cruiser idling, a stolen shell with its lights jury-rigged to a car battery. Real deputies arrived minutes later. They found me kneeling in gravel, rifle at my side, lungs wheezing. Most of my herd was gone, scattered across miles of prairie. The deputies took statements, photographed footprints, bagged the bogus uniform. They promised an investigation that would stretch months and likely stall. I still see those high beams in every mirror. On empty highways, I sweat at the whine of distant engines, knowing the men are out there, bandits dressed as law, hunting the next tired driver. If strobes flare behind you in the middle of nowhere, remember my story. Confirm the badge number, call dispatch, or keep rolling until civilization returns. Out here, the line between cop and predator is as thin as the paint dividing the lanes. I left the refinery after a double shift, eyelids gritty with chemical dust. The shortcut home, County Road 9, was 23 miles of potholes and scrub brush, but it saved 20 minutes and a toll. No cell service, no houses, just a railroad spur and tar-black fields stretching to the horizon. 5 miles in, I caught faint headlights gaining fast. A white panel van, no logos, grille dented. It slid up behind me, backed off, repeated, like a cat toying with a mouse. I tapped brakes. The van surged beside me, window down. A man with a bandana mask gestured for me to pull over, flashing a maintenance badge. His eyes were wrong, too bright, feral. I shook my head and accelerated. He matched speed, bumped my rear quarter hard enough to send my sedan fishtailing. I corrected just before the ditch swallowed me. Panic dumped adrenaline into my veins. The van dropped back, then rammed me again, harder. Metal screeched. My rear glass exploded inward. I floored the accelerator. The speedometer climbed past 90. Headlights flickered where wiring had jarred loose, plunging the road into strobing darkness. One misjudged swerve, and I'd flip end over end. Blue sparks blossomed ahead where the railroad crossed the asphalt. Welding crew must have left equipment. The van veered, avoiding debris. I aimed straight for the rails, praying the suspension would hold. Tires hammered over steel, chassis groaning, but I stayed upright. The van hit the crossing a beat later, suspension bottoming out in a spray of sparks. It slowed, something dragging beneath. Relief was premature. 2 miles later, the headlights reappeared. I spotted an upcoming junction. One direction led deeper into farmland, the other toward a shuttered grain elevator I remembered from childhood. I chose the elevator, engines roaring in my ears. The gravel drive pelted the undercarriage. Dust plumes swallowed visibility. I killed lights, coasted behind silos, heart ricocheting against ribs. The van barreled past the entrance, overshooting. I exhaled, then brake lights flared red. The van reversed slowly, search beams sweeping like a lighthouse. I crouched low in the seat, door creaking as I opened it. My boots found earth. I slipped around the silo's curved wall, palms slick. A metal shriek. My car door ripped open. Footsteps crunched gravel. Voices murmured. 2 men. They laughed about making it quick. I gripped a rusted length of rebar from the ground, crept behind stacked pallets. One assailant walked past, silhouette sharp against moonlit dust. I swung. The bar connected with a wet crunch. He crumpled, blood pumping through denim jacket fibers. The other man shouted, drew a pistol, chrome glinting. I darted between grain hoppers as rounds cracked, sparks leaping off steel. One bullet grazed my shoulder, fire streaked through muscle. I reached the conveyor tower ladder and climbed, fingers slipping in sweat. Halfway up, I kicked loose a rung. It clattered down, forcing him to detour to the opposite ladder. At the top, wind hurled grit against my eyes. I found the emergency hatch for the grain chute, pried it open. As the gunman emerged onto the catwalk, I heaved a rust-frozen lever. The conveyor belt jerked alive, gears screaming after years of neglect. He fired, missed. I swung the rebar, striking his wrist. The pistol skittered off the platform. I shoved him. He stumbled against the conveyor, sleeve snagging. The belt dragged him towards spinning auger blades below. His screams echoed inside the silo before abruptly stopping in a spray of red mist. I slid down the opposite ladder, shaking. The first attacker still lay moaning. I took his keys, phone, and maintenance ID, stolen from some unfortunate technician. My own sedan was totaled, tires slashed. I commandeered the van, adrenaline carrying me the final miles to civilization. Sheriff's deputies found counterfeit repair orders, duct tape, zip ties, and a cooler packed with syringes of ketamine in the cargo hold. The men had been prowling rural counties for months, abducting travelers for ransom or worse. They never expected resistance from a tired refinery grunt. Most nights I can't sleep. The conveyor belt's screech morphs into screams behind my eyelids. But if I hadn't fought, I'd be a name on a missing persons poster, vanishing somewhere along County Road 9. Remember that when an unmarked van waves you down on an empty stretch? Sometimes the safest lane is the one that never stops, no matter who begs you to pull over.